Okay, we're gonna call, call the Utilities Commission meeting to order. It's 7:31 PM. Our first order of business on the agenda for Utilities Commission is to approve the minutes of the Utilities Commission meeting of August 7th, 2017.
I will move that we approve the Utility Commission meetings August 7th as submitted.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Let the record show we unanimously approved the minutes for August 7th. Next item of business is the total operating funds on hand for the Utilities Commission. Total cash on hand is $1,071,761.78. In our capital funds for water and sewer hookup, we have a balance of $623,400 for a total balance of $1,695,161.78.
Which is 3 times the money the county.
I know, why do you have to bring that up, Marty?
That's gone up quite a bit.
We may replace the mayor with you.
Go into the capital fund, yeah. There've been about $100,000 worth of new hookups in the last couple months.
So can't we just average these?
All right, our next item on the Utilities Commission meeting is payment of the bills. Is there a motion to pay the bills?
I move to pay the utility bills.
These don't look very high.
Second.
All those in favor?
These are normal.
Any opposed? Let the record show we unanimously agreed to pay the bills. We're moving right along. Bob Sykes report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I only have a couple things. The cam scan over at the wastewater plant had been acting up, and I had talked about getting the company to come in and overhaul it. That is done. It is working again. That happened while I was away. What else was it? We had I guess everybody has the packet for a leak on Calvert Street, and I have already credited the sewer portion of the bill because that water did not go down the sewer. Typically, everybody's sewer bill is based on the amount of water that they used, with the assumption that if you use water, it's going to go down the drain. When there's a water leak, it doesn't go down the drain. So I credited the sewer portion of that bill. I think for hardship reasons, they're requesting credit on the water portion of the bill. But that not being within the scope of what I do, I suggested that they could come to the council meeting and make that plea directly to you guys.
The way I read this, they were told they had a leak and didn't want you to shut the water off and let it keep on leaking until they could get it. Is that correct?
Yes, I met with 2 people down there, and that is the case. But the reason was because of the expense of the repair. They did not have the cash on hand to have the repair done. And I don't think that they had a good grasp on how much the cost of the water bill could accumulate.
How long did that go on after that offer was made?
That went on
Several
about 4
quarters.
months.
So you
4
can see
months.
in the history of the account
Yeah.
where the leak started
The
and,
repair date is on
yeah,
the bill, so it was actually repaired
in March of 17.
at the end of March.
The leak started in the 3rd quarter
Yes,
of 2016.
so we're looking in 7 months? About 7 months,
7 months.
yeah.
And still ongoing.
Well, the leak is repaired.
Well, it's pretty high, well, by my experience, paying water and sewer bills in town, a fairly high bill at the end of June.
Yes, because the one in June, the repair was done on the 31st,
Of March.
right, and the meter was read before that. So what we're seeing is part of leaking at the rate of about 4,000 gallons a day,
1,000 gallons a day?
approximately, is what we had on the March bill.
It's going down the road.
Yeah.
And The leak was going right to the gutter. I mean, it wasn't obvious, like a swamp in the front yard or,
Well, it was actually leaking underneath the house in the crawl space, and it was not very accessible. And some of the plumbers that came to look at it didn't want, correct me if I'm wrong, some of the plumbers that came to look at it didn't want anything to do with it because it was going to be such a difficult repair. And the ones that were willing to do it wanted to charge thousands of dollars. And they did not have thousands of dollars to hand to a plumber at that time.
has there been a reading since the end of late June?
Yes. And the usage has gone down.
Okay, good.
Is it back to normal?
It is almost back to normal.
Which looks like.
It's a couple thousand gallons higher than what normal would be, but nothing in the range that we're looking at here.
Yeah, 347,000 gallons.
Yes.
Compared to when it was normal, you know, 9,000.
Right. Normal, depending how far back you go, I don't know when the house was bought, but a normal bill was just barely over the minimum.
It's in the history that's further back. Property transferred, 6/20/2003.
Okay.
Property transferred today. And Terrace was 218.
So the usage history was a little over what would be a minimum, but not what we're seeing. So when we look at it now, at the 85,000 gallon for that 1/4, I attribute about half of that, a little more than half of that, to the leak that was still ongoing after the reading to when it was repaired. And I think now what we're going to be seeing is a normal usage, historical usage.
So what are our options?
Yeah, that's the question.
Well, typically, I have the authority to waive the portion of the sewer bill. The reason that I suggested that she could come to the mayor and council, I do not have the authority to waive the water bill or any portion of it. This has only happened about 3 times in the last 13 years, where somebody had a high water bill, and I referred them to the council. One, it turned out the neighbors were taking his water while he was away. And the other one, like this one, is just, it's a hardship.
Do you ever work out a payment schedule? Where she would pay so much extra each month until this debt is taken care of? I mean, I could just see waiving this, everybody comes in. There's a question now whether I have a leak or not. I'm listening to this waiving half the sewer thing. Whether we do
No,
that
I
or
mean,
not.
I don't think that's necessarily fair because it's clear, and I don't think everybody will be able to come in and make the same case. It's very clear that there was a significant leak. I think that's quite obvious. I mean, would a potential solution be to just average out the usage and then charge for the leakage month based on that average usage and then waive the difference?
I think that the property owners would be grateful for anything that the mayor and council could do for them.
So, right, I mean, we had a significant leak at our old house on High Street one time, and it cost a lot of money to fix it. But by,
I don't understand the argument, significant leak or not significant leak. It's a
Well,
leak, it's a leak.
yeah,
and
but fortunately, we were able to repair it in a hurry.
You know, you're told it's a repair.
But if we forgive a whole bill,
It sets a precedent.
it's a precedent, and why does anybody have an incentive to fix a leak? So we need to, I like the 2 suggestions I just heard, Sam's, and
Payment.
a payment schedule, maybe a combination of both, would be a good solution.
I mean, did anybody have any idea how large this leak would be when it came time to actually get a quote for repair and?
We knew how much it was leaking. And at the time that I was made aware of the leak, I talked to the homeowners on the phone. But I think, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, she was still living in the house. And you can't live in the house if you have your water turned off. So regardless of what kind of leak it was, she still had running water in the house. Yes, ma'am?
And she was actually able to pay $1,300 on the bill.
Yeah,
That's a receipt for that.
yeah, and maybe I didn't mention that. This isn't the entirety of the bill from the leak. They paid $1,300 at the courthouse when the property was put up for tax sale. But that wiped them out.
That was,
So are they still living in the house?
Yes.
So they paid 1,300, what was the
Is that what I'm looking
original
at
bill?
here, right here, this W?
Who would they pay the 1,300 to?
The house was put up for tax sale because of the past due water bill, so it had to be paid at the courthouse. And then the county gave that money to us.
But we got the money.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I was saying. I mean,
We paid it to the other building.
I don't want the county.
yeah, that's the
Yes.
balance at January 31st, 2017.
Correct.
That was paid off. And then the next, by the time the next bill came around, they were pretty much back where they started.
Yes.
Can we go from that date? So that would be the first and second quarters of this year. All right, I'm just trying to figure this thing out.
So there are only 2 payments made?
So there's not a credit on this history. There's no payment showing,
136266 on June the 30th
of what year? Of
2017,
2017,
It's 522, I think.
522, yeah.
522.
Yeah,
So that's a payment that was made.
to the courthouse.
Oh, there it is, I see it, yeah.
To,
And that was the balance at the end of January.
Yes.
So they paid off that balance. Can we work with the rest of this year? As a suggestion, I like Sam's and Marty's combination of that, of averaging the usage and just figuring out a payment schedule that fits with the ability of the homeowners to recognize it, but maybe not going more than
Okay.
a year.
So we can look at the history and we can go with an average bill over the period for the last,
Minus the
3 years.
leakage, correct?
Since the 31st of
without the
January.
leakage,
Okay.
what the normal usage would be before the leak. And we can average those bills and then set up a payment plan. If that's acceptable.
Over 3 years, you said?
The payment plan, no. The payment plan would be over 1 year.
Yeah, but the average over the
No.
last 3 years?
Previous
January.
3 years.
She paid off the balance that was due on January 31st. So I'm suggesting that we go from there, because then her balance was, I think, if I'm understanding this table that Anna provided us with, that her balance was basically zero then.
Right, but what I'm saying to Bob about the averages is that her usage is either at minimum or above. So if we went back over the course of 3 years, minus the leak, and averaged out
Oh.
what she would get over a 3-month span, and then bill for
2014,
those
2015,
two.
2016.
yeah. Which, I mean, you can't average it from
Yeah.
the leak.
Or,
You have to go before
as
that.
an option, we can look at 2014, 15, and 16 before the leak and see what the highest quarter was.
There's a good one.
The highest normal usage.
That's a good
I
idea.
think that's a good idea.
Okay, and so then you would bill the highest usage for 2 quarters,
Yes.
correct? Come on, okay.
How did you get that? I thought we were going to,
Can
We'll
we,
work out a payment for him unless she wants to come in
can
and
we
pay it
just,
all off at once.
instead of like trying to work out all the numbers and percentage, can we just authorize Bob to work, give him the authority to work with these guys to figure out a payment plan that's fair to both parties?
As I understand it, what I'll do is I'll look at the past history before the leak, and we will look at the average, and I'll look at the highest to make sure that that didn't happen over extended periods of time, and come up with something that I think is equitable, and then make
Let us
some
know what-
payment arrangements. And I can let you know in email, or I'll put something in your box, or I can let you know at the next meeting.
I think that sounds good.
Sounds good.
So I think we might probably need a motion to authorize Bob to work that out.
he's looking at me, so.
I'm looking at you, Liz.
So I move that we authorize the utilities manager to review the history of the account at the address we're looking at here, figure out an average usage prior to the leak, and to work with the homeowner to figure out a payment plan. Did we put a time on it, on that payment plan? Year?
1 year is typical.
1 year payment plan?
We would want to get something done before this fiscal year closes out, so that we don't have to carry the
Right,
debt
that's a good
over.
idea. So before the end of the 2018 fiscal year, on
The
June
end of June.
30th. And that we forgive the unusual usage, given the homeowner's efforts to repair.
Yes, and just to be clear, I mean, we're not letting anybody, she has paid already a lot of money. I don't, and we don't do this a lot.
Maybe not.
I think that is reasonable, and I'll talk to them and work something out. And if we can work something out agreeable to both of us, we'll go ahead and get it done.
All right, well, is there a
The
second?
reason I'm smiling is I do think I may have a leak, and it sounded like he's talking to me. We're not gonna do it for everybody.
We
I'll
might be
second.
talking to you in 2 weeks from now, Mark.
It typically doesn't happen. Like I said, this is only the third request that I've referred to the mayor and council for water use in almost 14, it'll be 14 years.
All right, well, we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, let the record show that we unanimously agreed to give Bob Sykes authority to work with the homeowners to find an equitable payment plan to address the issue. Thank you, guys. Sorry about that. That's not fun for anybody. All right,
And that's all I have on my list.
okay, are there any questions or comments?
Move that we close the utility meeting.
Second.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Utilities Commission meeting is adjourned. See ya. We're getting close, Margaret.
Oh, it's okay.
I see you eyeballing the agenda.
No, it's all new to her. It's a real experience.
Yeah, I bet it is. Yeah,
It's really hard.
You've done it, you're doing well.
Zip the mouth.
As soon as the venerable Mr. Ingersoll is seated, okay, we're gonna convene the mayor and council meeting of September 5th. It's 7:48 PM. Our first order of business is to approve the minutes of the mayor and council meeting of August 21st, 2017.
I'll move that we accept the minutes as submitted for August the 21st, mayor and council meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, operating funds on hand for the town of Chestertown. For total operating cash on hand for unrestricted use, our balance is $550,039.26. We do have in our PNC checking balance for the Broadreach sculpture, $6,434.57. You'll see that we also have about $10,216.60 in grant reimbursement requests in our accounts receivable department right now. Our third item on the agenda for the mayor and council meeting is the payment of the bills.
Move to pay the bill?
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Let the record show we unanimously agreed to pay the bills, which brings us to our star presenter for the evening. Some lady named Margot Bailey from the Environmental Committee.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and Bill and Jen. I'm representing the Environmental Committee, and I want to talk trash. Single-use plastic trash. This is a really insidious thing that kind of crept up on us all. You know, we started using, instead of water fountains, we started using single-use bottles. It's grown and grown. Remember, we used to have paper straws with paper around it? You know, they were the best things to, you know, spit the paper across the room. Plastic doesn't work. And now we have plastic straws, and plastic covers around the straws, and plastic stirrers. And these things are really wrecking our oceans and our rivers. And it's, when they had the climate protection and preparedness thing, oceans were not mentioned, but we are decimating our waters, and we're doing it. What is interesting is that the cost, as you'll see, we think this is an easy thing to do, but there's always a cost someplace else to the world, whether it's to the communities that have to do cleanup or to our health as we use the fish in the ocean for consumption. So this is, all right, Jen, I'll figure it out. Let me skip my glasses on. All right, so, there.
Yep, got it? All right.
This is what the Philippines looks like. When you can't even get through the ocean and water. You remember when we put something in the water, it goes wherever it wants to go, wherever the currents take it. So it's not just because somebody else drops it. We're doing it also. And this is California. In California, I can't remember, this Los Angeles, they had to build a thing around it to capture these bottles and trash so it wouldn't pollute the waters. That's an end cost. These things are expensive. Think about the paddle wheel boat in the marina in Baltimore. These things cost money, and we're just tossing it away. And then we come to us, the Chesapeake Bay. And that's a heartbreaker, because we're trying to improve the health of the bay, but in the meantime, we're shoving stuff into the bay that's going to prohibit a good, healthy spot. And I'm not asking you to ban anything, so don't get worried. You know, in 2011, we banned plastic bags, and it has been a great thing. You have so many countries around the world, like Rwanda has banned plastic bags totally. They check your luggage when you come to the country, and if you have a bag, you're fined, because they're finding that they just can't handle the load of plastic that's invading their lands. So, what can we do? If I can figure out there, okay. This is what I find interesting. Did you know only 1 in 8 water bottles get recycled? 1. 40,000 pieces of plastic are floating on every square mile of ocean. It's 46,000. By 2050, there'll be more plastic in the ocean than fish. That's not good. Yeah, 80% of all marine debris found in the ocean is land-based. That means it came from us, we tossed it over somehow, and 80% of the maritime debris is made with floating plastic. In the U.S., this is fun. In the U.S., we use 500 million straws a day. A day. That's enough to wrap around the earth, I think, 2.5 times. That's never recycled. Yeah, obviously, with the wrappers also. This is the real ugly one, styrofoam. Styrofoam takes 500 years to decompose. It cannot be recycled. Styrofoam containers dumped in landfills are there to stay, and they create methane, which is more toxic than carbon. Really bad stuff. Also, for instance, say you get a styrofoam takeout and a take home after dinner, and you heat it in the microwave. That heat releases the chemicals that are dangerous into you because they leach into the food. So if you get a styrofoam cup of coffee, heat it, you're just drinking chemical after chemical. It's really hard to see.
Could we go to full screen?
There we go. No. Okay.
We'll go to full screen.
It's wide open.
We don't have the screen, she has to follow along because the
I don't
screen
have-
was black on the
it's
computer.
I can't see it
Oh,
yet.
okay, sorry.
Okay, back to requesting a straw, which is, you know, we used to be able to have a drink without a straw. And it wasn't too hard to do. But somewhere we got in the thing that we had to have a straw. Straws were initially made for people who needed to swallow things. And then we went from the paper straws to the plastic straws. And if you know, you go into a restaurant or a bar or anywhere, they give you a straw automatically. One of the things we would like to be able to do with the committee, with the approval of you all, is write a letter to all the restaurants in Chestertown and ask them to ask their servers to see if someone wants a straw first. Because once those servers put it on the table and you don't use it, it still doesn't go in the garbage. So that's an easy way to suggest to people that this is what's happening. The same thing with takeout. When they bring you a takeout container and then they put it in a plastic bag, and ask them also, do you want a plastic bag with your takeout container? So I want you to think about if we could write the letter and give it to Bill for his approval before it's sent out. We're just a suggestion to make people start thinking about what's happening. There are one of the things I read interesting, I said it was about why aren't there materials yet that can be reused or something besides these single-use plastics. And the big corporation said, no one's asking us to do it. We could probably figure it out, but no one's asking because we don't think about it. We just buy these bottles of water. I've had people say, well, I buy bottles of water because I don't trust my water at home. So we'll get a water filter. You know, you're just using tons, and it's costing you, the consumer, an incredible amount of money. I think a gallon of water is 8 times the cost of a gallon of gas or something like that. You know, when you think about it, you realize you're not making good decisions. And straw is one of them. You can get at home, you can get metal straws, you can get all kinds, you can get bamboo straws. There's so many choices, but we need to think about that action we're taking before we automatically reach for something else. Okay. In fact, there's several websites now that are up about last straw days. They're trying to get people. Miami Beach had to ban straws because they were littering the beach. They were getting to the bodies of the dolphins and everything out because they were just floating away, so they finally banned plastic straws. And this is how critical it's becoming. Okay, we're back to the plastic bottle. Well, you know, why did we all stop having water fountains? Do you know why we did? They kind of just...
I think partly the health department requires that they have a drain, as well as providing water. They also have to have a sanitary drain.
Okay. Because it was this became the go-to thing. That's right. 17 barrels of oil annually go into making plastic bottles. Can you imagine?
Million
We talk about saving oil. I mean, it's oil. And you think the oil is in that plastic bottle that you're drinking. That's enough to fuel 1.3 million cars a year. And last year, the average American used 167 disposable bottles, and only 38 were recycled. It ain't much. People don't think. And you know, interesting, I was doing the unmayor thing, I'm gonna stop, standing on the high street watching our recycle bins, and people were coming by and putting garbage in the recycle bins. They're just not paying attention. In the United States, 24% of bottled water is sold either through Pepsi's Aquafina, Coke's, is it Dasani? Dasani. I don't know about the word. They're purified municipal water. I mean, it doesn't make sense, and you're paying $1 a quarter or something like for a bottled water. So this is easy to do, is get your own bottle. Fill it up, take it with you. Not a hardship. So we go back to my styrofoam. It can't be recycled. It goes in the landfill, releases methane, breaks down in the oceans and the rivers. The seafood, the fish and the birds and everything eat it, and then that poison is in them. We catch the fish, and then we're eating fish with chemicals. It doesn't make sense. This has to change. I started, and it's hard to get really dressed up nice and go to a restaurant and carry your own recycle bucket, your own bucket or bin saying, can you put my food in here? But it's easy to do. San Francisco has banned styrofoam. A lot of places are also now banning plastic forks, knives, and spoons for outside use because they're finding that, for instance, you have, say, turtles, and they're getting straws and forks and knives up their nose and killing a huge number off. There is a special island where all the albatrosses go every year to lay their eggs and have their babies. The plastic's blowing in there. These are eating that stuff and dying. They did an autopsy on some of these birds and they're filled with plastic. They had golf keys in them. They had cigarette lighters. They had everything in the world. So we're damaging our wildlife, and because we're a little lazy. So once again, we can encourage people to take their own box with them, and encourage the restaurants, ask their servers to please see if you want a straw or if you want a plastic bag for takeout. One of the things that I'm really excited about, not so much this corn plastic, do you know that we still can't grow, or beginning to grow hemp in the United States? We import $600 billion worth a year into the United States because we can't grow hemp. There's that crazy that it's going back to reefer madness. And hemp can be used in so many ways in the soil. It clears out the carbon. It can be made to use for disposable bottles of various things. So there's a project that we need to think about. What are the alternative materials that we can use to make this world safer and cleaner? I can't stand the thought of my grandchildren eating things that are full of chemicals. I wonder why we're also so bloody sick. So there's things like there's corn-based plastic things. There's recycled paperboard. I heard that new place, Smoke Rattle and Roll.
Smoke Rattle and Roll has paper.
He has that old paper. And Milano's Pizza uses a lot of reusable products too, which is, I know it costs more, but add a dime to the meal. I'd rather pay the extra dime than take things out of that way. Oh, there go my hemp. I love hemp. It's the most incredible product. Do you know that Henry Ford once built an automobile out of hemp? And he took a sledgehammer and he wanted to see if he could break it down. He couldn't do it. That's how strong and powerful it is, but get a clue, folks. So, what I would like is I guess I'm finished? No. How do we go to the next one?
That's it. That is the last one.
Okay.
Can you smoke
What I
it?
would like you all is to think about if we can have permission to write a letter to all the establishments and ask them to ask their servers if you want a straw, and then ask their servers if they bring a takeout container, do they want a plastic bag? So if we can do that, I said I'll give Bill the letter to approve, or I'll give Chris the letter to approve. It's just a suggestion to make people aware of the problem we're having. Okay, thank you. David asked you to ban me. Can I close this down?
I'll take care of it.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Margaret.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we move on to the town manager's report.
Yes, and I had squeezing something into my schedule.
Yeah.
What's her name?
Rosie. How do you pronounce your last name? Granillo?
Yeah.
Please take some of my time right now.
Oh, you're
Okay.
speaking your tongue.
So
I don't have a lot to say.
I'll introduce Rosie. Rosie emailed me about kind of an interesting partnership that's going on between the Good Samaritan Group, the United Way, and the local management board. They're basically conducting workshops on basically trying to break the cycle of poverty in our communities. And I can't attend. There's a session this week. I can't make it because of my Sultana responsibilities, but I told Rosie she could come kind of tell us about the program and we could help get the word out.
Thank you so much for giving me a minute of your time. I'll make it quick. I just wanted to make sure that everyone on the town council or involved with town administration has an opportunity to know that we are providing this workshop for free, and lunch is included. And you are more than welcome to attend. This is a workshop that a lot of different municipalities around the state are looking at right now. And It's a little bit of a two-part process. First, we have a Bridges Out of Poverty workshop. That's for community stakeholders, council members, people that have, a role within the greater community that care about what's going on with families in generational poverty. And it's really a workshop. You spend a couple days looking through the lens of class, and it's provided by a facilitator who actually comes from generational poverty. So there's elements that we're all familiar with, that we know in our own lives and our own experience, but working together with a person who has been through generational poverty to understand what makes a person's mind tick, what are the things that motivate them on the day-to-day, what are the real barriers that they experience, what are the things that actually help them overcome and start working their way out of poverty. And these are things that we should all know as community members that care about our neighbors. And so the Bridges Workshop does that for us that live in a more stable environment, or people from a middle-class background or greater. And then there's also another component that is offered, that there's a curriculum for people in generational poverty. And that's a workshop called Getting Ahead in a Getting By World. And we're very much interested in trying to do some of these workshops with families in Chestertown. And that's why Warren's here as well from the Good Neighbor Fund. The Good Neighbor Fund has been working with families for years and years, and we're often seeing a lot of the same families. And it gets frustrating. You want to say, well, what can we do to really, turn this around? How can we be effective partners for these families? And this is the kind of thing that this program would be able to offer. It's not a cure-all. It's a very complex issue, but it's really building the empathy, the understanding, and the partnerships that we need to be able to work with these families as peers and neighbors that care. And so there's also, it's all provided from a group called the AHA Process. They're the ones that design the curriculum, that have done the research, that have trained facilitators to do this. At least for the Bridges Out of Poverty workshops. Once you learn how to facilitate a Getting Ahead workshop for families in generational poverty, anyone can do it. So for example, myself and Warren, we've done the facilitation training. We could go ahead and take that role coming up. There's other people in Easton that have already started doing it, and they're seeing really exciting experiences come out of that as well. It's also been implemented a lot in Howard County. And on the sheet that I gave you, it talks a little bit about how things are structured, that there's the Bridges Workshop, and then there's also the Getting Ahead courses with families in poverty.
I'm confused. There are two workshops here, with one in September, one in October, and they both have the same title.
It's the exact same workshop, but you have 3 different dates and places to choose from. So at the end of this week is the one in Chestertown. And then at the beginning of October, there's 2 more, or there's a course being offered in Easton.
Oh, okay, that's not clear on this, okay.
And then finally, at the end of October, there's an option in Crownsville, outside of Annapolis. And so people who can't make it in Chestertown, there's still an opportunity to go and check it out.
Okay.
Where's the one in Chestertown being held?
Stepney Station. And we did this workshop for the first time in May. We had a lot of partners from Department of Social Services. We had members from United Way, from the Workforce Investment Board, from just a broad variety of agencies and organizations and people who just generally are interested. And the experience was powerful enough that we said, all right, like, what's the next step? How can we have more people have access to this training, and what can we do here in Chestertown to use this approach to address these problems?
How are you getting word out to the families?
We haven't started that yet because we haven't gotten to that point. Like, it's going to be a process. We're trying to get more partners invested in the approach, and then we will take that step. If we're being ambitious, we were hoping to provide a Getting Ahead workshop with some of the families from the winter shelter, and that's why Good Samaritan and Good Neighbor Fund and United Way are also interested, but that could just be a starting point. It's also really interesting because the woman who's facilitating these 3 workshops, the one in Easton and Crownsville and here, she also works as a consultant for a county in Vermont. And she's hired by a consortium of businesses that have had a lot of issues with turnover and problems with their employees because they're low-paid employees. So there's a lot of people that are just, having trouble paying the rent, or there's just a lot of instability in their lives, and those problems show up in the workforce. And so she's able to come in and be like that anchor in the lives of all of the employees. They can call her in at any moment saying, so-and-so's not showing up, or this person seems to be having issues with transportation, or anything that occurs, and she's able to intervene and help the family resolve that crisis before it means losing their job. And so, and with the employers, they find that return on investment very effective. And so these are things that there's a lot of different avenues that this can take, whether it's looking at people coming out of the criminal justice system, or just families that are working at different companies around the county, et cetera.
Yeah.
We're not limiting ourselves.
It's an interesting issue. I don't think a lot of people realize how much poverty is right here in Chestertown, because a lot of people walk down High Street, down Water Street, and they're like, wow, this town, these people are loaded down here. And you just have to walk that extra quarter of a mile or take that right or left-hand turn, and
that's a
it's significant.
reason the local management board is particularly invested, because our families with children are the ones that are really experiencing more poverty in a disproportionate way. So a lot of our children in the county, almost 50%, are living in poverty.
Yeah.
Well, with the LMB, are they offering daycare for?
Not for bridges out of poverty, but because that's for social workers, for community members that have a little bit more stability, and we're able to already provide that. But then when we do the getting ahead, we would look to provide that daycare if that was necessary, for sure.
And are there age limits? I mean, are you just focusing on families, or how about individuals?
It would be for individuals and families. We would look for a good cohort to start it off. You want to find the right mix of people because they become, when you do the getting, because I'm just here to talk about bridges out of poverty. This is a process. But then once the community feels that we're ready to do a getting ahead program with families in generational poverty, that's a whole other conversation, and it can be adapted to any population. So you can focus it for people that are in and out of the detention center, or it could be families that are connected to our Judy Center at Garnet Elementary, or it could be people that are associated with the winter shelter, or it could be a little bit of mix of everything.
So these 3 workshops, the content is described only in the one for Easton, but is it the same? They're the
It's
same?
the exact same content with the same facilitator.
So confusing this time.
I'm sorry, I just copied and pasted the invitation from each, because I'm providing the one in Chestertown.
Liz, just pick one.
And
Well, I want to forward it to some people I know, so.
Do you have any plans on inviting some of the business leaders? Because I think they
we
would
reached out
certainly
to some
benefit.
of the human resources departments at Lamont, at Dixon, and at the county. And I also asked United Way to reach out to their board members and their partners that are from the business community, and we're going to have from economic development as well.
Great.
Great. All right, thanks, Rosie. Appreciate it. Back to you, Bill.
Well, I thought I'd give a brief report on the marina because I get this question all the time, where's the ramp? The ramp design has been completed by Andrews Miller, totally redone and approved by DNR, Waterway Improvement. The change order has been approved by Kingfisher, the contractor. The materials have been ordered and the goal is to finish it before downrigging. It includes a 60-foot concrete ramp with a 6-foot floating pedestrian ramp that goes all the way down it and 15 feet of drivable width for the ramp. The interpretive center is under redesign. It's lost its second story, but I think it really in some ways looks even better. So if the council would like to see it, I'd like to bring it to the next meeting and show you the design, or else have Case come. A lot of work's gone into it. I don't think we're suffering any real losses for what we try to do 90% of the time at the marina. The USDA is poised to give us our loan, and local banks are assisting us with interim financing. So that's all been approved by the council in the past. We're also ready for a pretty big winter as far as projects go. We've turned the corner on the bulkheading, probably be removing piers and building new ones. We have a lot to bid out. It's all pretty much ready. The key thing is the financing is ready. We're going to go ahead with this ramp, even though it costs a bit more than we thought, but it's going to tie in the important part of the marina for us, so we can work in the other areas. So the interpretive center breaking ground is also important to us. So I thought I'd just bring everybody up to date. I know you have before, but you'd have to see all the work to see why it's taken this amount of time. The original plan for the ramp was sketchy at best. It really looked like a ramp, but it wasn't buildable under that set of plans. When you think of it, and if you ever watch them drive pilings down there, and they take a 50-foot piling and they hit it once and it goes down 30 feet, you know why it's not that easy to build a ramp. But we're set to go, and apologize for the delays. Also want to say that this has been a big year for permits. There's a lot of other things going on that we never talk about. If you're up behind Washington Square and you look out over the fields, the large warehouse office complex is being built by KRM, or being started. It's pretty exciting, actually. There are grant requests that are in to help them with the infrastructure, but it's a huge project that's going to be a big asset to the town in jobs, economic development, all the things that we've talked about for a year and a half in assisting it with the different programs that have been adopted by the town. So on a day-to-day basis, we've already exceeded last year's numbers on permits that have been granted so far, and that's one of the barometers that we use to see that we're definitely stepping out of the recession. And you see something going on almost in every ward. That's all I have to say.
All right. Well, that brings us to the mayor's report, and Bill basically hit on just about everything that I was going to say. I would add that, with the loud and clear message we got from the state when we did our big letter writing campaign was, we've given you a bunch of grants and you need to spend everything we've already given you. And that was, that's a legitimate, I think, critique by them, but I don't think people really realize how much goes in behind the scenes before you just start tearing out docks and driving in pilings and putting in new stuff. So it's been a very interesting process for me, coming from a nonprofit where there's 4 of us yelling across the hall about like major organizational decisions, and then being able to act on it the next day if you so choose, to being in a governmental role where you're relying on like engineers from 3 different companies and different permitting agencies, and it just takes a really, really long time. But hopefully by the end of this coming spring, I don't think we're going to be done, but we're going to have put hopefully a very big dent in the infrastructure needs that have needed to be addressed for 20 years. I mean, the fundraising is still going to be ongoing, and we're still going back to Waterway Improvement Fund, and it may take a couple of years till we're completely done, but I'm hopeful that within the next 6 months, people will be able to walk down there and physically see a difference, whereas up to this point, you see a few things that are different, but most of the work has kind of been done in these offices, kind of to get ready. So, again, that's kind of like the white whale in my world, and I'm harpooned to the side of it.
He's mortally wounded.
Yeah, we'd like to think
Not
he
dead
did.
yet.
All right, so we're going to move on to ward reports. So why don't we start at your end tonight, Liz?
Thanks. Well, carrying on with the marina theme, this afternoon, Bill sent us an email with a video from 2012 it's on YouTube, and if people want to look at it, it's called Visiting Chestertown and Cruising the Chester River. And I looked at the whole thing, being an old sailor, and it was really quite well done. I think by somebody called Dominic Mentone. And I'm thinking, wouldn't it be good, once the marina is done and really presentable, to update that? I mean, it gave so much prominence to the farmers market and downtown. I mean, it was a real tourism boost, but geared towards boaters. And it might be really good to promote the marina when it's new, and now to get this fella to do a new one and try and get it out to the boating community. So thanks for sending that, Bill. I found it really enjoyable. In terms of the first ward, I'd like to thank the town manager and the zoning administrator for working with the manager at the Amberley Park, the trailer park in the first ward, to clean up some of the trash piles in there. I've been through it a couple of times lately, and it is looking better. Lastly, I'd just like to remind everyone that school is in, and please pay attention when you're driving close to the schools in town, Garnett and the middle school, and I guess the Christian Academy, and where there are children back on the roads. Please pay attention.
All right, thanks, Liz. Linda?
Well, it's really nice to have highway user funds come to Chestertown, Maryland. This has been an issue with the Maryland Municipal League ever since I've been on the council. And if anybody wants to complain, I suggest that you go down on Route 50 and then you come back to Chestertown and you'll feel blessed, really. Because they're doing westbound now, and it goes from 3 lanes to 2 to 1, and I'm dreading when they do eastbound. But anyway, it'll get fixed, and tonight they were out there in the rain working. And I got on my beggar's stand here. We have a Tea Party Festival meeting tomorrow night at 6:30 at the Visitor Center, 2nd floor. If anybody would like to join the festival committee, that's where we are the first Wednesday of every month. That's it.
All right. Sam?
So all is well in Ward 3. I want to thank the Washington Park Committee for advocating strongly for a recreational area in the neighborhood. I'm very pleased to announce that our zoning administrator, Case DeMoy, was able to submit an application to program Open Space to fund a new recreational area in Washington Park. So we should hear sometime in the summer of next year. So
is that in the newly revitalized park that we all cut the ribbon
yes,
for?
where we cut the ribbon, and Tom and his crew, they were able to relocate a swing set, and the Recreation Commission built a horseshoe pit. So the program Open Space money will then come in to hopefully build a pavilion, a kind of a walking path around the park, and then install some landscaping and some trees. So very excited about that, and I hope we get some good news next summer. That's it.
Gateway Park has been getting some heavy usage.
Gateway Park is, yes.
Was it really?
Yeah, when I came down. Yeah. 30 kids play basketball.
And it's always, it's interesting because, you know, a lot of the residents who doubted Gateway Park or said that we didn't need another basketball court, or we didn't need this, or we didn't need that, a few of them have actually come forward and said I was wrong.
So gratifying.
So it is nice to see that park be used, and it's so nice to see it all tied in with the rail trail. So yeah, things are good.
Marty?
I promise not to myself, if Linda doesn't bring up the farmer's market, I won't say anything about the dog park, so I'm not going to say anything about the dog park.
Marty, I was just there, and there was a second pavilion.
We have 2 pavilions.
That's awesome.
We do, and they were all paid for by donations. You didn't mention it.
$1. It got rained out Saturday.
Yeah, I bet it did.
I really want to say everything's fine in the 4th, and that's only 5 words, but I will bring up something that's not a ward report, but people will notice I'm wearing purple tonight because I'm hoping to get to wear it more often, but the Ravens did win all 4 of their preseason games. And the town will be represented by a bocce team. We lost 3 members, but we gained 3 members, and we're looking to win the championship. I really was sorry to see the story goes and Liz Gross left, but I understand her reasoning, so. We're starting a Thursday. Kay McIntosh is a new member.
Ringer.
Somebody said she's been out there early in the morning practicing. I don't know if that's true or not.
Okay.
That's it. Everything's fine in the 4th, except the streets are falling apart, but otherwise it's okay.
We'll do yours first then.
No.
Okay, there were no requests from the public tonight to be on the agenda. Are there any questions and comments from the audience? Yeah.
I emailed people, but late today, so some of you didn't see it, but I just wanted to let the council know that we thought the first Cars on High went really well, the 3rd Thursday of August. We had like 34 cars show up.
Wow, that's great.
I don't think you're here, but Barbara and John Slocum, who organized it. So we would like to build on that success for the September and October Cars on High. And I've talked to Chief Baker about closing High Street along the park so that we really have a little bit more of an event feeling, a special occasion feeling, be a little safer, and it'll integrate the Cars event into town a little bit more.
For the people
Put
that,
in a permit. Put in a permit
We
request.
have a permit, so we have one more council meeting. If I need to do a whole nother permit, I can,
No,
but I didn't know if I needed.
just alter it, that's all.
Just alter the permit.
do the people that brought their cars seem to have a good time and
They
enjoy
love-
them?
Yeah, I mean, there are just so many interesting cars and car people in town.
Yeah.
It was a really fun diversity of cars, and we were very, very pleased. I'd like to see more members of the public come down to see the cars, because it was mostly the car people visiting with other car people. But they're really fun. I'm not a car person, and I really enjoyed it. There's some beautiful machines.
Remind me of the times again.
6 to 8.
So it's after most businesses have
Yeah,
closed.
so we're
and-
saying, I think it'll be good for business, but we'll try it. If it doesn't work, we won't do it again. But I think it'll be a positive to, it'll allow the cars to park perpendicularly like they did on Park Road last time, instead of just parallel parking. And it'll let people know right away there's something special happening, rather than just little cars.
Well, the pictures on Facebook, were they of this event?
Right, yes.
Yeah, they look
Yeah, and very good coverage on, can't remember actually what Cook County News did, but the Spy had a lot of pictures in their coverage, so it shows the diversity that we have there.
Oh, I did want to bring up, Chris, on your marina.
Yeah.
You can notice something's missing. One
That's
building's
right.
taken down, so
Is it gone?
you can see that there was work done now. There's a building, there's a concrete slab there now.
That's right.
And it didn't hurt a bit, getting rid of that building.
No, it didn't. Yeah.
Mayor, I came tonight mainly to be of support and to reaffirm what Rosemary is working on and what she has shared with you with the Bridges Out of Poverty. But she did not give you some numbers. I'm Warren Bevan. I've been chairing the Good Neighbor Fund for 3 years. I work cooperatively with the Salvation Army and the Samaritan Group, which are the sponsors of the winter shelter that occurs in several churches from January, February, and March. When we put all those numbers of people and households that we work with, every year it's about 195 to 210 households. And often those are households that we don't see when we're walking around town normally. They are almost the hidden poor among us. About 55% of those people are what I call situational poverty. They had an illness, they had a surgery, something happened that they fell temporarily into poverty. I worked with a man today who has a deteriorating spine. All he needed was $194 to pay a water bill up in Galena, and he's back on his feet. But there's about 45% of the people that we work with come every year, and it's recurring poverty. And Rosemary saw this program that has been done in Howard County, it's being worked on in Talbot County. It was recommended to her, and I sat through the Bridges workshop in May, One of the reasons I came is that I saw that the presenter had practical experience in both Rutland, Vermont and White River Junction, Vermont. And I knew both of those communities and the counties around them because I lived there, or right next door to there. And what I was impressed about was the number of people they were helping to get out of poverty over a 5-year span of time. Our winter shelter has a maximum capacity of 12. In White River Junction, they have a maximum capacity of 39. They had 19 people out of those 39 sign up to do the Getting Ahead workshop, which is the second thing she was talking about. 15 out of the 19 finished the 12 weeks of intervention. 5 years later, I think it was 7 of them had earned their AA degree from the local community college, were financially stable, had their own housing they could depend on rather than coming to a group like us, and they were moving forward with their lives. Now, you have to divide those numbers by a third, but where Rosie's actually trying to go in the next year is to work with about 15 households from our county, many of whom come from Chester Town. And imagine what the difference it might make if we could take 10 of those 15 families and make them stable or help them become stable. I really don't want to say we do it for them. The whole process is you help them do it for themselves. Adrian Baker asked me when I was sharing the program with him, as part of the sequence of what they do they learn how to write a resume? The answer is yes. They also learn how to communicate, like I'm doing with you right now, in a way that leads to employment rather than disqualification. So I just want to reaffirm what Rose has put in front of you. She's not asking you to do anything right now other than be aware of what's happening in our front yards. And I thank Rosemary for grabbing this and running with it.
Great, thanks.
Well, there are also quite a few help wanted signs around Chestertown, too.
I'm aware of that, and I'm frequently referring people in those directions when they come and are interviewed at the table where Salvation Army and Good Neighbor Fund are. Yeah, and that's a change from a year or 18 months ago, where I didn't have anybody, or any place to refer somebody.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments from the audience tonight? All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
That's why I kept it.
Okay, we are unanimously adjourned.